So supposedly I have been paid to do this video from somebody whose data is going to be involved in this video, and they know that. This is what they said. They cannot wait until Tuesday. It'll be so obvious who paid her. That's what they said about me. So here's the deal. By the end of this video, you can decide if I was paid to do this video, or if the only obvious thing that I would say would be paranoia. So annihilation means to destroy, to reduce to nothing, basically. And in today's culture of true crime, that word fits. And it's basically about when people will turn grief into a content farm over and over and over again. Riddle me this. Why does true crime so often mean annihilation? Not of mystery, but of dignity. So this is why I believe. Imagine burying your child and then opening YouTube to see a stranger, multiple strangers, earning ad revenue off of their death. Imagine trying to grieve, but you can't properly grieve because millions of people have decided that your tragedy belongs to them under the guises of true crime. To the one who said it'll be so obvious who paid her, I will not name you, but I can't help but wonder what you're thinking watching this right now. Are you excited? Is your heart racing? You like this, don't you? Your impulse is to sneer at a grieving family asking for help just to attend court for the child that no longer is alive. You laughed when they blocked you. Healthy people would back off, but you're not like a healthy person. No, you mocked their GoFundMe, called it disgusting. You salaciously crowned yourself with delusions of grandeur as better than them and all others that dare to challenge you in your thinking about this case. But you will mock the families. You will mock the people that are no longer alive, the children, and you will make money off of their death, like a maggot fattened off of grief. Let me show you who you really are to yourself and others. Here's a post you made about Ethan Chapin and his family. I quote, Ethan was an embarrassment to them. He was doing substances and heavy drinking, failed classes, kicked out of the frat, dating Xana, and they did not approve. They cremated him after an open casket funeral to keep in their basement. Twins instead of triplets. Now they care, ha. And you call yourself a true crimer. This is you. This is really you. You are a bully. You are an abuser, someone who profits from their death. And then you mock them and their families with monetization, merch, memberships, and links to your PayPal. And as you wrote to me, from one victim to another, let me caution you, do not confuse your path with my path. Because some masks are best left undisturbed. You begged for me to highlight you. Was it exactly what you wanted? I hope so. Here's another layer of irony. Some of these YouTubers will tell you they're just covering the trial or just unfolding the facts. They paint themselves as archivists or even investigators helping the case. But scroll back through their uploads, and what do you find? You find accusations thrown at people who were never guilty or not guilty, mockery aimed at grieving families, sensational thumbnails, baseless speculation dressed up as analysis. That's the part that they don't want you to remember. They lean on the noble excuse, I'm trying to help, but their track record shows otherwise. They're also hurt families. They are hurting reputations. They are hurting investigations by spreading noise louder than the signal. It's terrible. And here's where cognitive dissonance kicks in with these people. They cannot reconcile those two truths, that in one video they claim to be the voice of justice by doing lives of trials, and in the next they are bullying, mocking, and speculating and exploiting people involved in the case. Worse, their subscribers often can't separate it either. They'll defend the creator saying, well, they're just bringing attention to the case. Plenty of people are bringing attention to the case. But bringing attention isn't the same as bringing consistent clarity 100% of the time and respect 100% of the time. And if you look closely, many of those videos aren't true crime at all anymore. They're mutated into gossip, into bullying, into spectacle. They say they want justice, but their business model depends on tragedy never ending. It's fascinating. It's fascinating how things evolve, how true crime began long before podcast, with murder ballads, broadsides in the early European era, cheap pamphlets in the 1600s, sensational tabloids in the 1800s. And now by the 20th century, we have something so much different. And I believe it really muddies a lot of the waters in some ways, because people are now able to take cases and they're able to upload things within hours, days. They can make 16 videos in one day on this same exact case. I have seen it. What once took months of reporting is now reduced to hours of speculation, optimized not for justice most of the time, but for algorithms. That's why these titles are the way that they are. It's why they're constantly doing things over and over again. So I want to let the numbers speak for themselves about the Idaho 4 case. And this is an over 1 year for each one. One channel had over 550 uploads. The other channel had over 700 uploads. Another channel had over 1,000. Another channel over 300 uploads and 70 live streams. Others, dozens to hundreds, recut, retitled, recycled, repackaged. And at some point, it's like, this doesn't feel like an investigation. It just feels like an assembly line of an economy that is built on corpses. And here's something that we really need to talk about. Over and over in history, people that are closest to the crime have been accused simply because it just felt too obvious, right? It felt too convenient, and they were there. They might have been there while the crime happened. They were nearby. They might have acted strangely. They didn't react the way that strangers on the internet thought they should. And so the fingers start pointing at them or different people. And what do we know from cases that are like this? That kind of logic can destroy innocent lives. So, for instance, Kevin Fox was accused of murdering his daughter. Why? Well, because his response didn't line up with what people thought that a grieving father should act like. And it turns out that he was innocent. Could you imagine being accused of your own child's death? Elizabeth Smart, her father was accused. Her uncles were accused. Even the family handyman was accused. All of them were innocent. And that's really sad. Heidi Brauzert's fiance, torn apart online, wrongly accused. Another person from the Idaho 4 case, she was accused as well and actually went to court and did a defamatory case and won. Mia Zapata's friends and her peers in Seattle, the whole scene turned into a suspicion with everybody. Again, everybody was wrong. It was a stranger. So it happens again and again. The person closest, the person who seems the most obvious, sometimes isn't the one. And now we're watching it unfold all over again with the two surviving roommates in the Idaho 4 case. And I know you people know what I'm talking about. They are accused by sleuths on YouTube and on Reddit. Why? Because it's easy, because it's convenient, because their stories didn't make sense to the internet and strangers, just like many other stories didn't make sense, but it turns out they were innocent and things just happened the way that they happened. So maybe take a step back for a second. Maybe the one who doesn't react the way that you thought that they should isn't the one responsible. Maybe the one that is carrying the survivor's guilt isn't the one truly guilty of the crime. And history proves it over and over again, that the obvious suspect isn't always the right suspect. And so I caution people with what they are doing to the two surviving roommates. Shannon Watt's father, Frank, Words that cannot be ignored. He said, instead of being allowed to grieve, we were subjected to a different kind of cruelty, an online harassment campaign. And that's not limited to fringe conspiracy channels. Kim Goldman, whose brother was murdered in the O.J. Simpson, she criticized how the media often turned his death into a show. Without any warning, without his family's voice, stories like hers will show that when storytelling becomes entertainment, the victims often get erased. Even online communities know this. Reddit users saying things like, putting the victims first is the best way. Consult with the families. If they say no, don't pursue. To the person that I spoke about earlier who keeps disrespecting one of the main families in the Idaho 4 case, rewind that part and listen to it again. But in another sense, the rise of those obituaries, pirate channels monetizing death notices, shows how far the decay goes. Families are tired of being treated like clickable headlines. Everything in life mutates. Cells refract, identities will blur, and eventually you won't recognize yourself when some things happen in life. You think you are observing, but the observation is remaking you, slowly, irreversibly. That's what I see in true crime today. People enter claiming that they want justice, but instead the endless loops of clicks, live streams, monetization, they mutate. The families will stop being human. The victims will stop being human. They become characters. They become raw material, refracted, distorted, and sold back as content over and over and over and over again on news media outlets, YouTubers, true crimers, TikTokers. And the horror is they want this mutation. They want the annihilation because it makes them relevant. It makes them more money. So the darkness doesn't just swallow the victims. It swallows the creators, their morality, their humanity. It becomes in some way annihilated under the guises of true crime. So what would ethical true crime look like? Here's the line in the sand that I would draw. Do not harm the victims' families. Do not harass. Do not speculate. Do not profit off their grief. Facts before theories. If you don't have evidence, do not present it like it is truth. Stop recycling trauma for clicks. If you have made, let's say, about 20 videos on the same case, ask yourself why. Respect the accused, but don't exonerate without proof. Innocent until proven guilty isn't a toy for thumbnails. No voyeurism. Don't sensationalize bodies, 911 calls, or private pain. Context matters all the time. True crime isn't just murder, PORN. Look at the social conditions, the systematic failures all around. And credit your sources. Research is work. Do not steal from journalists or other creators. Know when to stop. This is the most important, I feel. Not every case is meant for daily uploads, and sometimes silence is respect to the victims and the families. Remember humanity. These aren't characters, they are people. And ask yourself, who benefits if the answer is only you, truly? If it is you, maybe close your laptop. The Idaho 4 case should remind us of one thing. True crime is not a game. It's not a content mill. It's not a stage for speculation. It's something to be respected. At the end of the day, this is what it comes down to, though. It is a career that is built on corpses, on the next person that is unalived, on ad revenue paid in blood, on somebody else's scream turned into your paycheck, somebody else's child, unalived, turned into your daily uploads. And here's the twist that chills me the most. So many of the people doing this were victims once too. People who know exactly what pain feels like. People who should understand. And yet they recycle the pain, package it, and they monetize it. And they've turned victimhood into a business model. Not justice, not healing, but a business model. Some true crime channels are very respectful, but many are not. The ethical line that we need to draw of true crime needs to happen, because the moment we stop seeing the victims for people and start seeing them as revenue, you're no longer telling a story. You are selling their scream, you are selling their death, you are selling their pain, and you are selling their annihilation for your benefit. Tread carefully, because imagine if this for a moment was you and your loved one was brutally murdered. And what you do, if you were a true crimer watching this, what you do was done to you. Put yourself in their shoes for a moment. I urge you. I think a lot of true crime channels have lost respect big time. So please tread carefully, because if you know what grief feels like, imagine trying to grieve your child or your loved one while millions of people feel as though your grief and your child's death is ownership to strangers. That would be so painful. So, was I paid to do this? You decide.